Hello, everyone. Welcome to season 3, episode 2. I fucked that up already. Welcome to the AyeSphere.
We're not doing another take, actually. We're just going to go straight into it. Season 3 is definitely an episode.
We're starting off as we mean to go on. That should let you know what we're dealing with today.
Yeah, I mean, I think, fair introduction to it, because our brains have been fried by the two films that we watched for this episode. And to be fair, watch them back to back. Like, you know, it's one thing to do a kind of Barbenheimer where you've got like two pretty high quality films back to back. It's another thing to do the new Wonka film and Madam Web. What order did you watch them in?
So I was committed to this. I was committed to this episode because I watched the new Willy Wonka, I watched the Johnny Depp Willy Wonka, and I watched the Gene Wilder one. And then I watched Madam Web. So all I did yesterday was fry my brain watching.
Oh God. Can I just say that was not the plan. That was not about that. You took on extra homework there. That was that's your own fault. At least Gene Wilder was good.
I did it intentionally because as soon as I finished the first Wonka, I was like, I'm going to watch the others to see how they compare. And the Wonka, the Johnny Depp one was available on the streaming app I was using. So I watched that and I immediately regretted every life choice I've ever made that brought me.
Yeah, can I just say, by doing so, you have expanded the scope of this podcast today. Now we're going to have to talk about the fucking Johnny Depp Wonka.
We don't.
No, we do. We do. We need to talk about his dentist father, Christopher Lee. We're going to have to get into all of that now. And the CGI. Man.
Yeah, it was
okay.
But then I watched Madam Web before going to bed last night, and I came to bed and I lay there, and Mothman turned to me and he's like, "You okay?" And I was like, "No."
Absolutely. Did Mothman not watch it with you?
No, he went to bed.
That's fair. I unfortunately watched it with Jessica. I feel like I roped Jessica into watching Madam Web with me, and it was not a good time. And I almost want to cover that one first, but purely from I want to get this out of my head as soon as possible and never think about it ever again.
Which is fair.
So Joy, what was your thoughts on Madam Web?
You know the expression, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. I sat there after the end of that and I was like, the only nice thing I can say is that it ended.
I think like
after an hour and a half, it was over and I was free.
Yeah.
God love them. God love all the actors. They were doing their best with some of the worst dialogue I have ever heard in my life. You could see them too. You could see them saying it. You could tell it was like the fifth take, and they were looking like two of the girls. They looked at the camera.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, I noticed that.
They looked at the camera.
There was a couple where it was like, oh dear. So to give people maybe a wee bit of the backstory to this, because I think it was one of those films that you heard about how bad it was before it released. And I think it's because the press tours were doing so poorly. I think there was a kind of collective understanding between all the actors in the film that this film was bad. And I think the thing that I think got everyone, because the trailer went viral for having really clunky dialogue. And it was like, my mother was in the Amazon with him researching spiders right before she died. And that line didn't actually make it into the film, but it was in the trailer to the point where I think the internet kind of went, "What? This is going to be a shit show." I also think there was a bit of a misunderstanding from the actors about whether or not they were joining the MCU versus doing Sony's superhero IP thing.
It's a weird one. It was when I saw that. I watched the trailers for it when you were like, "You should watch this," as loving friends do.
Me with my fingers crossed behind my back,
testing the boundaries of our friendship. But it was I watched the trailer and I was like, That it seems a bit kind of, when ChatGPT writes summaries for things. I was looking at it and I'm going, what is this? Has this been written by humans or has it been written by AI? And then I immediately looked up to see, and you have members of the cast, including Dakota Johnson, saying it's AI generated.
I could believe that. I'm not 100% sure if it was, but I can believe it. I feel like it was a phoned in thing from Sony. I'm leaning towards that, but I at the same time I do kind of get the feeling that someone's went to some sort of AI thing and went, can you rewrite this in a different way and just plug that into the script?
Yeah. It feels as if it got plugged into a machine, and then they were told to edit what came out as a cost-cutting measure. It feels like it was a trial run of let's see what AI can do once humans have a pass at it. And it's very formulaic. It's very... I've seen it a lot in TikTok, book talk world. There's a lot of stuff that's like, the AI generated authors that are like, I've got all these best-selling books, and it's really because they've gamed the algorithm on Amazon. But they talk about how, I use AI to help me write 120 novels a year, and I'm like, that's not actually writing. That's just... Because
I think
it read a lot like them. It read a lot like the stuff that's generated that I see on romance TikTok.
Yeah, because I think with AI generated writing stuff, particularly when you're asking, like, everyone listening has probably heard our AI rants for the past several episodes, years, anyway. But the interesting thing about when AI generates inspiration for people to then edit and refine is that you will always be like, you have to be in a very particular mindset to take inspiration from AI as it is and make something completely separate. A lot of the time there is some weird word structure or sentence structure that leaks its way into the edited version.
It's a very specific way that because I've noticed it. I've noticed it with my own writing software. When I disabled everything, I got rid of my Pro Writing Aid, I got rid of my Grammarly. I've disabled Word's native editor now because Word's doing it too, and it's all generating the same sentence structure. And it doesn't make... This is, for anyone who remembers this was when my editor contacted me, like, have you had a brain injury recently? I was like, no. But that's it's the kind of like you've been thumped over the head with a thesaurus. It reads as though it's, someone that's concussed is telling you a story. And that's what the AI stuff does. And I've noticed it with a lot of, like, when I do edits for people, I'm like, you've let Grammarly rewrite your sentences for you, or you've let whatever software because they're all using the same sentence structure. And it's very recognizable if you're in the, not even if you're in the industry, but when you work as an editor, it is now very stark which people are trusting their own writing process and which ones are going, but the machine told me this is better.
Just approving all of the changes that they submit.
Even when they were speaking in Madam Web, I was hearing that sentence structure. I was hearing the truncated kind of jarring. It was really weird. It was really kind of like humans did not touch this as much as they should have. Yeah.
And, like, let's be clear here. At this point, we're just talking about the script. I also think there's a whole lot of shit wrong with the editing of the film as well. Like, some scenes in it, I thought it was like, why did they add that extra 5 seconds? Why did they just leave the camera on and, like, then just attach that and not cut it back? There was one scene at the start where they're at a barbecue, right? And the two main characters are having a conversation, and there's a side character that's part of that conversation until he leaves the scene. But the way he leaves the scene is he walks behind them and steps out behind them and then walks directly in front of the camera. Like me and Jessica looked at each other and we were like, what the surely not. Because apparently there was, like, the two characters were talking and this guy just passes in front of the camera, but not in a natural way. He'd already left the scene and then he came back in front of the camera and you're going...
Like Mark, and he doubled back.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was like. It was so strange.
But there was the editing, the pacing's weird, the editing's weird. For anyone that's light sensitive and or motion sensitive, this film is probably not for you, because I got very dizzy at certain points just watching it. If I'd been having a migraine, it probably would have made me vomit. just trigger warning for anyone like me who's sensitive to that sort of thing. Movie's probably not for you, or if you do watch it on a good day. But the pacing's weird, the cinematic scenes are weird. It feels like it was really just phoned in. It doesn't feel like a Spider-Man movie. And
is it a Spider-Man film? I had like
possibly
the only thing that I saw was the three women who are not Dakota Johnson becoming Spider Girls or Spider Women. The whole thing was really confusing, and of course this film is also for some reason set in 2003. I was trying to figure out why, and I was thinking, is it because they want like songs from the early 2000s in the film? And I think that became really apparent, was that like multiple times throughout the film you have like Toxic by Britney Spears, you have I can't mind the rest off the top of my head, but there's a couple of points where like some music person has went, we need this song in here, it'll be such a defining moment in the film, and it looked very placement-y. Similarly with the amount of Pepsi that is in this film, there is an ungodly amount of Pepsi drunk, and it's like held in front of the camera.
I have so much to say about Pepsi. It kind of felt to me a bit like what they were trying to do with, the Batman from 2022. They made it so that, first of all, the film that they probably went to go see when Bruce Wayne's parents died was probably Shrek. But the modernization of that film and the music, it all worked really well. It felt like a really way of like transporting it into like a bit more of like modernizing it up a bit, so that Bruce Wayne's not perpetually stuck in like the 80s or the 40s, depending on when you watch it. But that worked really well. It did not work well for Madam Web.
No.
But I will say, watching her crash her car into the villain as Britney Spears' Toxic plays, the best part of the film. That is also her main fighting style, is driving her car into the villain, and I stand by that. That is that's like an absolute fair fucks. It was like good, but I think surrounded by everything else, and the villain's a whole other thing. But we should probably talk about it in order. So
we need to talk about the plot and how the film starts.
The origins of the actual Madam Web from the comic books and the animated series, which I do because I'm a huge comic nerd. Madam Web, or Cassandra Webb, is born with a hereditary disease. She has a type of muscular dystrophy, which renders her on life support, which is shaped like a web, and it makes her lose her vision, so that her powers as a meta-human allows her to become psychic, and she kind of becomes the all-seeing eye of the Marvel universe. That's what her origins are.
Cool. I did not get that from this film.
In this movie, none of that happens. And I think it's because Disney may have the rights to her origin story from the DC universe, or not DC, the Marvel universe. I think that's what that is. I think Sony have been left with the scraps. I think perhaps Disney, as part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think they probably own Cassandra Webb's actual origin story. Because in this movie, she is magically cured from her hereditary disease by a spider bite, because it's not even a radioactive spider, it's a magic spider.
It's a magic spider that only exists in the Amazon rainforest, and I suppose the opening scene is her mum, who is heavily pregnant and is somehow just in the Amazon trying desperately to find these spiders, because her mum heard that her child is going to have this hereditary disease and then
her mum has it, and she was pregnant that she has it. So her mum goes on this quest to the Amazon to find this magic spider that's worshipped by these magical indigenous people. Yeah,
that was a little odd.
And she's not alone in the Amazon. She's with a research team. So thank you, Deloni, for letting me say that. But she's with a research team, and it turns out that the person she's working with betrays her and shoots her while he shoots everyone they're with when they find the spider. He shoots her. She gets rescued by the magical indigenous people who let her get bit by the spider. The spider's not able to save her, but it saves the baby and cures her muscular dystrophy. And it gives her psychic powers, basically.
And the villain just kind of like escapes with the spider, and like
this cute little pink spider, because it's a girl spider.
It's a girl boss spider.
The girl boss spider.
And then we get the time jump, and Dakota Johnson as Cassandra Webb is a paramedic. In
driving like a lunatic, I might add.
Yeah, as in nearly flattens a skateboarding girl who gives her the finger, and that guy who I thought would be way more involved in the story but wasn't, and then, like, I'm not joking, the last 30 minutes of the film is an absolute blur for me. I don't remember it at all. It's like, I think I just glazed over it. It was like generic as fuck. But is it Adam Scott Adam who plays him? I can't remember his name. That one guy. Okay. He's in Parks and Recreation. I think
Scott is he's not the villain. He is
he's
Ben Parker. He's Peter Parker's uncle, who they cannot name, but they cannot name Peter Parker at all. They can't say Spider-Man and they can't say Peter Parker. So that it's supposed to be a Spider-Man. It's in the Spider-Man cinematic universe, but for Sony. And they can't say Peter Parker and they can't say Spider-Man.
Which is weird, because I thought Sony was the rights holder, and the MCU leased that from Sony.
Yes.
No?
But I think potentially Disney may have bought something, and that's why
there might have been an exchange of Jesus.
Because that's the issue they had. That's the issue they've had with a lot of the stuff, where it's been, we can say this, but we can't say that. And it could be the rights for this Cassandra Webb story that they were like, it's a Cassandra Webb story, not Peter Parker. So you can't say his name. It's Ben Parker, and then you have Ben's sister who gives birth. And it's, what did they call the boy? They haven't decided yet. Fuck off.
Yeah. And so the barbecue that they're at is actually it's like the babe. The what? The
baby shower.
Yeah, it's the baby shower. And Cassandra is she's not the most social of people. When she saves someone's mum at the start of the film with her driving, and the child of this woman she saves wants to give her a picture, and she's all like, "Oh no, I don't do family." And I think it's such a ham-fisted fucking oh no, I'm a loner, I'm a dangerous. There's a bit where she goes back to her apartment, and a cat comes in the window, and she's feeding this cat, and she goes, "Us strays have to stick together." And I was like, fuck, my eyes were rolling out my head. I was like, for fuck's sake. It's so
very much, I need you to know I grew up in foster care, but I was watching this, and in my head I was rewriting it. I'm like, how would I retell the Cassandra Webb story like this?
Yeah.
And I was like, you literally didn't have to do any of this. You could have literally shown young Cassandra growing up in foster care. You could see her, you could maybe foreshadow her visions a little bit if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And you could do it that way. Instead, you have her literally being a dick to the children whose mother she just saved in an ambulance. I'm like, what is that? It's like the lone wolf, but lone wolf hero, but female. So they get her anti-maternal instead. And I'm like, wow, great, fantastic.
It's you could, yeah. Because Ben's like, why don't you just take the picture? And she's like pure making faces at this small child who's 6, being like, thanks for saving my mum.
For saving my mum's life. And she's like, fuck off, small child. And she's her whole character arc is her learning to come to, there's so many better ways you could do this. You can have a female lead who has mommy issues. That's fine. I have no issues with she's got a complicated relationship with children and all these things.
Yeah.
But they didn't do it in a way that makes sense. It was kind of they just turned her into I hate children. And then she has to like, oh, but she has to become maternal to save the 3 spider women. And it's like, or
yeah,
me out. Like that's like her development is like, oh, she goes from hating motherhood to being the mother of the spider universe.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is garbage. This is just awful.
So after some kind of weird frippery at the start, they get called from the barbecue, I think, with a baby shower to an incident.
It's so unclear. Things just cut so suddenly. And I'm like, was no one getting paid to do transition?
Yeah. And so they end up at a bridge. It's like a car's flipped over on a bridge and it's going over the end. And they're like, oh, we'll cut you out and all this shit. Long story short, she gets trapped in this car as it goes off and into the water. And she like cracks her head on the windshield when it enters the water, and then you get probably the worst CGI I've seen in a film in a good wee while, where she's just getting like pinged around, like her body's getting like pinged around this web.
The pinball
and like every so often it'll do kind of slow-mo where she's in like a dramatic pose, you know, her arms are out behind her and she's getting like completely absorbed by this web, and then it'll like whoosh her back to like another bit. And all this time I was like, is this her power? What shit. But from that she starts to get like visions and she starts to see things happening before they happen. There's quite a lot. I feel like she witnesses quite a lot of deaths in this film, which she then doesn't do anything to change the course. But there's the one, one of her paramedic friends gets in a car and she sees visions of him like being like trapped and like, you know, being crushed in the ambulance that he's driving, and she doesn't really say anything to get him out the car. He just drives off and a truck goes into him. I'm like,
basically, like,
what the fuck?
They chalk up a lot of her weirdness to, oh, she died that one day. Because when she goes in the water, she technically dies, and Ben Parker brings her back, and he doesn't take her to a hospital.
She was dead for 3 minutes.
Yeah, but they're all basically just like, oh, you're just paranoid because you died, and I'm like, yeah, but she's also saying things ahead of, like, she's telling people events before they happen, but also she never actually says to him, she never says don't drive. She just says let me drive. And then
he goes, no, you're not feeling better yet.
Yeah, I mean, if she's well enough to be at work and doing chest compressions and doing all this stuff, she's well enough to be driving.
Yeah.
If you're an ambulance driver, they don't go, well, you're not well enough to drive, but you can do CPR. That's not how it works. And it's just bizarre. But even like the way they do the visions are not clear.
Oh, fuck, it's rough.
It's so dizzying. It's so kind of like you don't know which one's which I guess they're trying to convey her confusion. But there's ways you can do that make it so that the viewer isn't getting vertigo. That's the only way I can describe it.
I think the editing has a lot to answer for in that regard, because it's not even clear to the audience when she's entering a vision. Sometimes it happens and then it like pings her back and you get the same scene. Like the one when she's at that baby shower, it happens, she gets the vision, and like halfway through she goes, hasn't this happened before? And you're kind of like, okay, sure.
Yeah. It's just very unclear. And I think there's a lot of crunch editing that happened, and I feel sorry for the editors that were on it, because when I was looking into it last night, it looked as though it got major rewrites in the middle of filming. It looked as though things just got thrown into the wind, and I'm like, I would have been crying if I was working on this film. Like if I was in charge of editing, I would have just been phoning it in like it's garbage. Like there's not much you can do with it. But the transitions were weird, and
I think the rewriting hit the villain's motivation a lot, because I feel like that wasn't like, so you see the villain who shot her mum, her pregnant mum at the start of the film, which was quite okay. You get reintroduced to him in the time jump, where he attends an opera or a theatre performance. He manages to seduce some woman who you later learn is part of the NSA, and he's getting security clearance to have his assistant in 2003 with a very, very modern computer setup track these girls across the city, which is odd. But that whole introduction when he's having, like, you know, he's had sex with this woman, and they're sitting and talking, and he's being all brooding at the end of the bed, and he's thinking, he's like, I have visions of my death, and this woman who's probably just had a pretty decent lay is just sitting there like, well, death comes to us all, and then I think he injects her with something. He's got spider venom. He's like the evil version of Spider-Man, but also his character doesn't make any sense because he kills everyone and steals the spider. He's like, my family needs this, and that's never touched again. Oh yeah, no, it's never touched again. He's just evil he just has the evil girl boss spider for power reasons. But the start of it is, no, you don't understand. My family needs this, and then you find out he has no family, and you're like, it's never brought up again. He's just evil for being evil. And to be honest, I don't even know why he was hunting the three girls. I think he saw a vision of these three girls killing him, and then goes, well, I might just kill them then. And he spends the entire film chasing them down. It's the rest of his, like, from the moment he gets these visions, he dedicates his life to finding these women that will kill him. And I'm like, best. Yeah. You could have been like, what did I do to deserve getting killed? Maybe I should alter my actions. Yeah. I don't know, but he dedicates decades of his life to hunting down teenagers who may or may not kill one day. And you have a magic spider that gives you superpowers. Why aren't you doing other things? Yeah, and I find the way that all of the girls come together is really strange. So you've got Sydney Sweeney, who's the daughter of the woman who she saves at the start. There's her neighbour, who's just in the same apartment building as her, and you've got the girl who she nearly runs over with the ambulance at the start, and they all happen to be on the same train carriage at one point, and Madam Webb, or Cassandra Webb, gets a vision that evil Spider-Man's about to come into the carriage and kill all of them, and she kind of lamely tries to get them all to leave with her, and she kidnaps them. She steals their skateboard and was like, oh, it's an emergency, come with me. And the girls were trying to turn her into the police because they're like, oh, we're being kidnapped. It's such a weird way of doing it. Like, they didn't really use the Webb connection as much, because if you're gonna have Cassandra fucking Webb, Madam Webb, and you're not showing anyone being connected by a web, that's like basic 101 symbolism that got missed. To be fair, I don't think the visual effects team had any time to do any of that. I think you're right about the crunch. I think they were just told, like, can you make it work? Give her some funky visions and we'll hope for the best. But like, there's a point where, so they all end up in the woods, right? Outside of the woods to hide. Out of New York, because apparently they're safer there. And she then leaves to go and do something, and the three girls end up at a diner, and that's where you get the toxic Britney Spears bit. And that is, like, to be fair, that scene is probably the best scene in the film. I don't think there's any others. I mean, that's the very, very low fucking bar, but it's a not bad scene. I found the scene where Cassandra Webb goes to the Amazon to be really, like, I feel like she's just there. She just teleports and she's just there. And she leaves the girls with Ben Parker for safety, and like, these girls are being hunted by evil Spider-Man, and she just shows up one day and is like, hey Ben, can you look after these three girls that the media says I abducted and keep them safe because evil is happening? And he's like, sure, where are you going? And then the next thing you see, she's in the Amazon doing a vision quest with the magical indigenous spider people. And I'm like, and that whole bit was like, I think that's where I mentally tuned out the film, was when she was in the Amazon. I think I got to this point where I was like, okay, I can kind of see how it's going to go. She's gonna discover the true nature of her powers here, because this guy is just going to exposition at her. and she'll go into the pool and she'll learn about how it all connects, and then she'll rush back to New York for the showdown. And sure enough, basically the final scene of this film is like Ben Parker, his sister, who's about to give birth to Peter, trying to get from the house to the hospital while being hunted by evil Spider-Man. And the three girls are there. And you only see the three girls in any sort of spider sense of it in visions. Like, you see, I don't know what the names of the individual spider girls, spider women are, but like there's the one with the actual spider's legs, the kind of the four, and she's got her limbs as well. There's the electricity one. There's an electricity spider woman that's Sydney Sweeney's, and then the other one, I thought the other one had Green Goblin bombs.
Sorry, you saying spider triggered my Siri to start talking there.
God.
I'm going to turn the volume off on.
Cool, I think we're back. Think we're good?
I think so. Are we? Are we there, Jack? That was
Sony executives were like, oh, I can't have this.
Shut them down.
Shut them down. What the fuck? Oh god, that's gonna be an absolute cunt to edit.
If you're listening on Spotify, you get.
We're so sorry.
Talking shit together. With Twitch.
I'll edit it, and I'll do our little technical difficulties sound effect that I've got. Yeah. Probably a spring. But anyway, that was the whole the ending. The ending's atrocious. I find that the final showdown was like at a dock, and I don't know why. Maybe back? Yeah, I think we're back.
Possibly.
I mean, if it goes again, then there's not really that much we can do, and me and Joy will just film brief apologies. We had to wrap it up short, but holy shit!
It could be Twitch. Yeah, I think it might be a Twitch issue, because I tried to clip that there, and the clip isn't working. So
that's odd. Yeah.
Sonny's
anyway,
right after you.
But anyway, Madam Web, bad film. We watched it, so you don't have to. Honestly,
also,
sorry, go on, Joy.
They kill the villain with product placement.
Yeah, they do. Fuck, they do. You're right.
They kill the villain with product placement. That's what you need to know about the ending of this film. It's a Pepsi can. He gets crushed to death by a falling piece of product placement. And then
something like that.
They go back and they do they make Madam Web disabled by hitting her in the face with a firework. She also gets hit by She gets Madam Web but they cure her disability with magic, and then they smack her with product placement and hit her in the face with a firework, and that's how they make her disabled again.
Yes, and it's literally. The bit at the end in the apartment's really bad as well, because it's supposed to be like the stay tuned for the sequel. This is not getting a sequel. There's no fucking way this is getting a sequel. But I felt so bad for the cast, because they had to like try and be triumphant at the end, and it just doesn't come across like that. I think before we move, I want to escape the film as much as possible, but there's a great quote from Dakota Johnson that I want to read out. So, in these big movies that get made, decisions are being made by committees, and art does not do well when it's made by committee. Films are made by a filmmaker and a team of artists surround them. You cannot make art based on numbers and algorithms. My feeling has been for a long time that audiences are extremely smart, and executives have started to believe that they're not. Audiences will always be able to sniff out bullshit. Even if films start to be made with AI, humans aren't going to fucking want to see those. And it's like, we stan Dakota Johnson. I think she's 100% correct. And I think for the lead star of a film to come out and say all of this directly after that film's release, you can see that they're not happy. And
press tours have all been the most lukewarm things you've ever seen. She's sitting there because she has to be. But also, the week after this movie came out, she fired her talent agency.
That does not surprise me, actually, because to try and book her for that was terrible. I also think Sydney Sweeney made a joke about it on SNL. She was like, oh, you may recognise me from this and this, but if you recognise me from Madam Web, no, you didn't, or something like that. Which I think is pretty funny. But yes, apparently Johnson signed on because she was convinced by Elizabeth Olsen, but it wasn't a Marvel film she was signing on for. I think if it had been an MCU Madam Web, it probably would have been a lot different. But at the same time, I've got superhero fatigue. I only watched this film because I had heard how terrible it was, and I was right. I should maybe just accept my intuition and from now on and not watch shit films.
It's I used to be I still am. I mean, everyone's aware of my Batman fixation if you're following me on Tumblr, but it's the superhero stuff is so watered down now that the characters don't remember the characters anymore. And I think Cassandra Webb is just another casualty of movie executives going, the audience wouldn't understand what muscular dystrophy is, so we're just going to hit her over the head with a Pepsi can and then say that's how she gets her superpowers. Like, it's very, you're being sold, you're being marketed to as though you are the lowest common denominator. And they've made the mistake of assuming that nobody will understand anything. It's very, I could talk about how they erased her genetic disability for hours, and I might do on Tumblr at some point because I was actually quite upset by that. But it just really felt as if it was, let's see what AI can get away with. We'll let some humans edit it and then crunch.
Hope for the best.
You know? And then you've got people that were in the film are just like, they're not into it. And it really feels like Sony, I feel like Sony has superhero fatigue, to be honest. And I think they should probably just hand over the rights to Disney at this point. But and I don't say that lightly.
But like, why? Like, I mean, was this film begging to be made? No. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, outside of diehard comic book fans, I don't know many people who would know much about Madam Web. I knew fuck all about Madam Web. I don't see myself as a comic book person. I'm not even a big Marvel person when those films were like out. I enjoyed the Iron Mans, but beyond that, you know, I was never as invested.
Always going to be biased because I'm a DC girly. That's my. I've always been a Batman girly. But I enjoyed when the Marvel films initially came out. I enjoyed those. One of my hen party things was I went to go see Iron Man with all my best friends, and that was enjoyable. However, it's just been done to death. They're all doing the same formula over and over and over again, and they've simplified the formula enough down that it literally feels like ChatGPT is writing the movies now. And it's a shame because Cassandra Webb is actually an interesting story. Just don't watch this one to find out what it is. Read the comics.
Yeah, I do think that, I mean, I again, don't want to touch on superhero films for much longer just because I don't care for them. But I think the moment you made it so that you had to watch all of it to understand what was happening in one film, like, because I never, you know, I had no interest in seeing Ant-Man 2 But apparently Ant-Man 2 had massive implications to the whole quantum side of some of the Endgame stuff and beyond. And
it's the issue with the current Star Wars stuff. Is that they were like, oh, well, like, it's not our fault if you didn't understand the movie. You have to go and watch these 4 other things that we've made, and also you have to read the novels. That's not how you do good storytelling. Everything should be able to stand alone, and if there is an overarching plot, it can't be, like...
It's rewarding for people who know, and it's just additional flavour for those who don't. I think Rain on My Window in chat saying, I think a part of the issue is that you need to watch 15 movies of homework for watching one movie. I think the moment there is that kind of obligation, you kind of go, oh, fuck. Especially when they started branching into TV series as well. Like, I've never watched WandaVision. I've heard WandaVision's very good, but the moment it was like, oh, you need to watch WandaVision to then get this next bit for this film and all this kind of stuff, I'm just like, nah.
If I can't enjoy something by itself, I'm not saying it's completely bad writing, but you should be able to watch something by itself and understand what is happening to a certain degree. You might not get depth or the lore, but if you can't watch a single episode and understand what is happening in that episode without having watched 15 years worth of media before that, that's bad writing. Sorry, just gonna say it.
That's very fair. Speaking of, what about the Wonka-verse? I think that's going to be the next big fucking thing.
So, I think we have to talk about the Glasgow thing for 5 minutes, 5 seconds.
Sure. 5 minutes. Yes.
But the Wonka Glasgow fiasco, I just want to say, leave the Oompa Loompa women alone. It's not their fault. She did
so well. I felt really sorry for her. It was one thing. I had like a brief TikTok that I then shoved onto YouTube Shorts, and it got a lot of views to the point where I had people I hadn't spoken to in several years messaging me going, oh, I saw that Wonka video you made, and I was like, oh, great, thanks. This throwaway fucking thing I did about it. But yeah, I think the poor lassie. I saw a couple of comments on that where folk were going, oh, I can't believe these actors and performers turned up and, didn't immediately rip up their contracts and go away. And I was like, that's not how the world works. They were promised money for a day's work. They have to eat food. The only person to blame is the organizer, who, funnily enough, is an author that writes with ChatGPT, and has published a gazillion books all via ChatGPT. But I think it's...
Like, there was the one actor said they knew they weren't going to get paid, but again, the one, I can't remember her name, the Oompa Loompa lassie, she was saying there's kids there and she didn't want the kids
to be let down.
So she was rationing jelly beans and chocolate to give the kids something because these kids had showed up and she didn't want to walk away from the kids. That's somebody who cares about, like, for a frame of reference, the organizer cancelled Santa's grotto. That's the level of fuckery she was up against, was a type of person that would take donations for toys and then say to children, no, Santa's not coming.
Sorry.
that was basically what she was up against. So she was like, oh, this is either going to be awful or I can try and make it better. I can try and give these kids some sort of happy memory, which is a nice Oompa Loompa giving them jelly beans.
Yeah. It is funny how, I would like to say that is a lesson for everyone about, events that are advertised with, generative AI stuff, all the fancy banners, all the fabulous whimsical Wonkaland graphics that were made for the event, obviously lured in, people. And, these are people who, maybe just saw it and kind of went with it, but they're also people who, let's just say all of the spelling mistakes on the banners, all of the made up words, all of the Like, if they were able to fool people at a glance, who probably, I'm not saying that everyone who attended was studying these advertisements, but looking at their website, you could tell that something was up. But I think there's maybe a self-selection thing in that when it comes to, the kind of traditional scam emails from the Nigerian prince sort of thing. I think.
I also think of mouth, because the way a lot of events go. Oh, our Jeannie said there's a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory thing. Are you going to it? Oh, I'll go for that.
Bring the kids, or the grandkids, or whatever.
Yeah, but it would be something to do with the kids on a weekend. And then they get there, and it's basically Tumblr DashCon 2.0. There's literally a whole thing in this warehouse. And then some sort of gremlin man inside the walls that was like, oh, I'm the evil Implimpa. Fuck.
Yeah. No, you're talking about the unknown. That was like a 16-year-old lassie.
Really?
Yeah, and it was her first ever acting gig, and she was told to be creepy and weird with this Death Eater mask and curly haired wig on. I hope she had fun with it, but
yeah, that's a hell of a thing to put on your resume. I was the unknown.
I was the unknown
in Glasgow.
Oh man, but I think. If anything, it is the direct translation of what generative AI promises and what the end result is. Because all of the positive stories at that event, it wasn't talking about the amazing AI art on the wall. It was about the humans who, for want of a better term, pissed with the cock they had and made it into something that was fairly obviously there was the police were called and all sorts, but they were kind of all the feel good stories from that was the Oompa Loompa trying to do right by the kids. The police were called because it was such an obvious scam, and to be honest, people were laughing, being like, oh, I can't believe the police were called to this event. I do, however, think there is something to be said about scamming here, and the organizer in particular. And I think, given what's come out about the organizer since that event, I do think there is some form of criminality there. It's too... If you think you can get away with that, I mean, to be honest, the event going viral was probably the worst thing that ever happened to that guy. He was probably thinking he would put up an absolute shit show, underpay or not pay at all these performers, and shovel all the money and get away with it. And I'm kind of glad they weren't. But it was just a scam. It was a scam that was enabled by AI generative art and also text in this instance. But it's the organizer is a scammer. Yeah, absolutely.
He's the type of person that organizes Santa's grottos and cancels them. He boasts that he's got all these titles on Amazon that are books. As someone who also has an Amazon Kindle account, the most complicated thing he would have done would be to insert his tax details to get paid, because there is nothing complex about giving ChatGPT a prompt and then publishing it.
Yeah.
He's just very much, he thinks he can get away with things because he thinks he's smarter than everyone else in the room. Unfortunately, he is doing it in the dumbest way possible.
I'm glad he's kind of exposed now. What he'll do is he'll fold that company up, he'll start another entertainment company, and he'll probably just try and do the same again under a different name. People who are attending these events aren't going to be looking up Company's House and identifying who the founder is and going, oh, that's one of his companies, oh, it's a scam. But it's interesting, on the R Scotland subreddit, in the run-up to the event, there had been people talking about it being a scam, because they'd seen the Facebook ads for it and stuff like that. Obviously, it was a highly sponsored event, and they were kind of going down that line. But yeah, that's obviously blown up. And to be fair, it is a perfect link into the second film, because there's no way that this Willy Wonka thing would have actually been an event had the film not come out. And I think they were trying to capitalise on the refreshed interest in the Willy Wonka universe.
The Wonka-verse. And the Wonka-verse.
The Wonka-verse.
Phrasing I never wanted to say in my life here we are.
So, Timothee Chalamet, good Willy Wonka?
Actually, yes.
Weirdly, right?
I just got done watching Dune again. He's a better Wonka. He is an actually. I was saying this in my Discord yesterday. I could see his Wonka turning into Gene Wilder's Wonka if you left him alone for long enough with no one to talk to but in Olympus. I could see the madness in his eyes. That's like, yeah, that checks out as the type of person that will get children sucked up into a chocolate machine. That made perfect sense to me. I'm like, yeah, he's a little freak. That man is going to he's going to be the ultimate troll as he ages.
Yeah.
It was kind of, yeah.
It was a weird film though, because some of the bits, I think there was some sections where the comedic timing was perfect, and there was some genuinely laugh out loud bits that I was like, okay, this film's really going somewhere. At the same time, there was just that, why is this film being made question, like ping-ponging around my head, going, what was this? They obviously tried to do a lot. It was a much more whimsical Willy Wonka. He captures the lightning from the sky and puts it in his little sweetie machine thing, and
he is a terrifying eldritch being. Can we just establish that? Like, he is.
Yeah.
He's terrifying. He's like a wizard, but he's got this kind of like. So the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory remake with Johnny Depp, the backstory for him going into chocolate and being this absolutely weird character was his dad was a dentist who never let him have chocolate. So then Willy Wonka became a chocolatier out of spite, and he just does his own unhinged thing.
Christopher Lee as the dentist is so good.
Yeah.
It's so weird, but also so good. It's like, that's Saruman.
Yeah, but you also have, with the Timothée Chalamet one, he gets into chocolate because it's a happy memory for him, because his mom, they didn't have much, they couldn't afford much. It's kind of like the Charlie origin story. Like they're poor, they live on a narrow boat, and she makes chocolate for him as like his one treat. Yeah,
one chocolate a year on his birthday was the memory.
And he wants to give the joy he had in childhood before his mother passed away. He wants to spread that. And I think that actually works better in terms of tying it into the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I think it's actually genuinely good character backstory, where you have this character who is trying to do good in the world, and he's essentially being taken down by capitalism. Like, he gets fined, like he's doing his little song and dance routine in the street, and the police come up and are like, sorry, son, there's a fine for daydreaming. And it's kind of like that. Like, you're not allowed to dream of better things. It's all work and grind. And if you don't work and grind, you'll end up being ground under the heel of poverty. And then you have the whole, I want people to experience joy. I want people to experience whimsy. But these capitalist shitbags who are these other chocolatiers who are like, I do like how it's set up that, they've been arch rivals for like years and years at this point. By the time Willy Wonka becomes the guy with the full factory, because he wants to own a shop in a particular shopping district where basically the square of chocolatiers and all of the chocolatiers are like facing each other, and and you find that they're all a monopoly. You find out the other three are all in a monopoly together to try and prevent other people. It's good.
It is good.
Solid writing. I was not expecting that. When you told me to watch it, I was like, okay, this is going to be awful. And I watched it, I was so annoyed because it was actually, I'm like, it's making points.
It is making points. I think it's funny how Johnny Depp's Wonka is a lot more literal in how he actually makes the chocolate and the sweets. I feel like the Timothée Chalamet Wonka film lends itself to there's whimsical, it's magical, there's a bit about it, whereas I think the Johnny Depp one has him fucking cutting bugs open with a machete and licking their blood off his off it before he finds the Oompa Loompas. It's a lot more literal in that way.
The Tim Burton take on how to be creepy
Yeah,
and
I hate
the
that.
thing that I've kind of, I used to like a lot of Tim Burton stuff, and I still do to some respects, but I think Tim Burton is just an edgelord a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's
it's
it.
more, let's gross people out. Let's like do like this. He doesn't fully understand why things are creepy, because Gene Wilder's Wonka's fucking terrifying. That man
Fuck.
is
He's unhinged, and like the boat scene ride and that with the centipede has haunted my dreams.
Yeah.
Like that was the one bit that was like, oh, that's creepy. But him also just like staring, going, there's no knowing where we're going.
And just the random poetry quotations and stuff like that. Like it's very like man who's not been socialized for decades. He's only been talking to his literal minions for decades as he makes chocolate. And you can see Timothée Chalamet's Wonka turning into that, because he is... I thought it was weird that they made it so that he didn't know how to read and write, but
that was like, there was a couple of things in that just had me like, that was probably the most glaring, was Wonka doesn't know how to read and write. And I remember looking over at Jessica and going like, why is this a plot point in this film? What?
Yeah.
And then you've got Thingy Coleman and her
Olivia Colman, yeah.
Yeah, Olivia Colman, and the guy that fancies her but also like pretends he's German royalty, Bavarian royalty. And then it's so weird, but they're actually running a kind of slave laundry shop thing. That's weird. Yeah.
It was weird, but to be fair, the acting was spectacular. Like it was a weird plot point, but they were all putting like their entire like Olivia Colman very rarely does anything badly. And it was like, yeah, I could see her as being like a henchman's, like a villain henchman type person.
Oh no, she is good. It's just that, like, for a Wonka film, that like there was just a lot of things inserted into the film that you're like, okay, so they've got to reference the Oompa Loompas. They've got to go into his passion for the chocolate and his kind of like his whimsy based on that. What I didn't really see from the end of this film was how he becomes the more eccentric Wonka later on, because he seemed quite grounded and quite focused in what he wanted to do, and he starts his chocolate shop, and it never like it didn't sound, on at least Timothée Chalamet's character didn't feel like he was the sort of person who would get paranoid about spies and then shut all of his stuff behind. And I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of Hugh Grant's Oompa Loompa either. I know there'll be Hugh Grant fans out there.
You know who would be paranoid? Hugh Grant's Oompa Loompa.
Yeah.
Hugh Grant's Oompa Loompa would be like, these people are stealing from us, because that's his whole thing, is that Wonka stole from him. So I could see if Wonka was being... Because the Hugh Grant's Oompa Loompa is... Yeah. The paranoid one. If he's the business partner, I could see him being like, you need to shut the factory down because they're spies. I could see that being a thing. And then what if in the Wilder universe, that Oompa Loompa's dead, and that's why he opens the factory? Sorry, I'm just going full.
Okay, well, yeah, we're gonna have notes up on a fucking wall and pins in between.
Like the red lights behind.
I actually really didn't like Hugh Grant's Oompa Loompa character at all. I didn't like. I just didn't find it particularly necessary for this story. I mean, I know that they had to reference the Oompa Loompas, but when I saw him and he was trapped in that jar, and I was like, what's the goal here? Like are they setting up a sequel, or is it just a slice of Wonka life?
I feel like Hugh Grant's just getting phone calls now, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to do a cameo in this?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah. We need you to be a camp character. Yeah, I'm down. Hands all in.
He's earned it.
No, definitely. But yeah,
he was fantastic, and so the Wonka, the vibe I get from this is it's kind of like in the same cinematic universe as the Paddington stuff, and Hugh Grant is a good villain in the Paddington universe.
Yeah, oh no, he was great in Paddington. Yeah, he's fantastic in
I'm wondering
Paddington.
if it's just like a weird tie-in to be like, oh yeah, you're an Oompa Loompa in this one. But I genuinely think he's just getting weird phone calls now, and he's at the point of his life where he's like, yeah, I'll be an Oompa Loompa. I'll be 8 inches tall. So that's fine.
Rocket Planes asked a really good question. Do you think that Roald Dahl is rolling over in his grave? And I kind of want to say Roald Dahl's a piece of shit. I also want to say I don't think so, because I think the spirit of this film is Willy Wonka. It's just not written by Roald Dahl.
Yeah, the thing that I think is making Wonka roll over in his grave is the fact that Netflix owns the rights to all of his stuff.
Wonka? Roald Dahl, you mean?
Sorry, Roald Dahl.
Wonka is also dead.
Wonka's also
F's in chat for Wonka.
Roald Dahl's estate is owned by Netflix now. I think eventually
yes.
Roll over in your grave. The Wonka stuff, it has all of the Roald Dahl elements. You have a whimsical character who is magical and can control things that are otherworldly. You have villains that are very obviously villains, and their power is based on corruption and money and like hoarding wealth and resources. In this instance, chocolate. And then you have the small orphan child who gets reunited with her family and gets the life she always wanted. That is Roald Dahl over the back. It's Matilda, it's George's Marvelous Medicine, it's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, all rolled into one. You have Noodle gets her family at the end of it, and that's the main thing. You're setting up Willy Wonka to be a character in future worlds who looks at the poverty that Charlie and from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory's in and goes, oh, that one, I want him to be my heir because he understands what it's like to not have joy. He understands to not have chocolate. And he will understand that children deserve stuff. That
joy,
Whereas the Johnny Depp one is literally...
Oh, fucking bleak as shit. I hated that.
He doesn't... He wants an heir, but he doesn't want family. He wants his namesake to be carried on. Whereas with the Timothee Chalamet one, you could see him as an older version just being like, bring your family to the factory. We'll have a good time. Because he's very much... I wish my mum was with me. And I do think that was well done. I think it's someone who's had a dream since childhood to have his mum's chocolate being sold in this prestigious area. And he fulfills that. And I think it's lovely the way that focuses on family can be your dead mother that you're honouring, or it can also be the people you pick up along the way, which I think is more in line with Dahl.
Definitely.
I think in terms of like, is it true to the source materials? I think this is more true to the source materials than the Johnny Depp one. Or even the original Gene Wilder one. I feel it's a bit more true to that as well.
There's definitely I think the Gene Wilder one's more like kind of psychotic explanation of how he has all of these things, whereas I think, to be absolutely fair to Timothee Chalamet, I think he gave this his all. Like, he did not half-ass this. There was some singing bits that I was like, okay, maybe he's not completely sold on it, but he did give it.
He doesn't have a fantastic singing voice.
Yeah,
but he did give it his all, and even the dance scenes.
Points for trying.
So I maintain that Timothée Chalamet stole Gonzo the Muppet's outfit from a Muppets Christmas Carol. He looked like Gonzo. But the thing is, this could very easily, it feels like a modern Muppet movie. If you had put puppets into this.
Oh, you could have put puppets into this. Yeah.
And it would have been great because it has that kind of vibe. It has that very kind of silly, whimsical, but it's also got the jokes that like adults will get. And it felt like a Muppet movie without the Muppets. And it was good for that. It was like a good kind of like.
I actually thought the banter between the three chocolatiers was also pretty good. Yeah. Like, just like tonally, I thought it was not bad.
And also, just to go back to the Gene Wilder one, it was made in 1971, so everyone was probably off their tits on LSD. So that explains a lot.
There's no knowing where we're going. Down
a psychedelic tunnel. But it's a weird. I think there is Shy Magpie saying there is a hunger for that Muppet sincerity, and I do think the Wonka 2023 is verging on that. I think it is trying really hard to be wholesome, enjoyable media, without being edgy. It's not trying to give you the kind of like, it's self-aware, but it's not the self-aware in the self-deprecating sense. And I think we actually need more of that, because I think a lot of stuff is, oh, we're self-aware, look how bad this is. That just gives filmmakers an excuse to make bad films and be like, oh, look, we're intentionally being bad. When we're self-aware. It's silly and it's fun and it doesn't make any sense. That was
what stood out to me as well. I said it a couple of times to Jessica while we were watching it, but I was like, they walked the line of self-awareness so well in this film, and it's something that you've kind of got to watch it to truly get that. But there was moments where you're like, they totally know what they're doing with it, and it's a good laugh. I think the
musical numbers are great. It's very much when you have the musical numbers and Wonka's spinning around in the square, and then you have the policeman. He's looking back in his reality, and he's like, he can't see anything. That's moment. That's like a little moment where the adults are going to go, oh, that's funny. And then you go straight back into the dance scene, and then the dance scene ends. He's like, sorry, son, there's a fine for daydreaming.
Yeah.
That's good. It was well done. It was a really good little nod to being self-aware and like, this is ridiculous. But it didn't half-ass anything, which I really appreciated. So,
there's definitely a video essay to be done on like that film's take on capitalism, because event like the three evil chocolatiers are like paying off the police with chocolate and everything is great. But yeah, I think compared to how I would rank it, I think the Gene Wilder one will always have a space in my heart. I think it's great. I would definitely place Johnny Depp's Wonka at the bottom of the pile. Also, is any filmmaker going to dare try and do Willy Wonka and the Great Glass Elevator? The vicious knids in the Space Hotel are horrifying, and not a single person has attempted it yet. You could totally do a Willy Wonka horror film that's on the Space Hotel.
You could.
But yeah, to be honest, I would actually say, I haven't seen Timothee Chalamet in much. Like, I've not seen Dune, right? And I've not seen Dune 2. Every time I go to watch Dune, I get to, and I'm going to call it Dune instead of Dune because I'm Scottish. But with Dune, I get to the point after the ceremony, which is like 5 minutes into the film, and I see Jason Momoa, who's playing Duncan, I think, and he's like, no, you're not coming with me to Arrakis. And I then wiggle my mouse and I go, this is a 2.5 hour film. I feel like I always click on Dune to try and like watch it, but it's always like, I've got stuff to do within that 2.5 hour period.
You have to be a fan of the book to get through it.
Right, okay.
It's a commitment.
I feel like aesthetically it looks really cool. I've not been like, the first 5-10 minutes I've watched just haven't grabbed me and pulled me in, and I've got no I never grew up with the book or anything like that. I would probably quite enjoy reading the book. I've got it downstairs, but I just
serious sci-fi, but it's not got an easy hook. It really appeals to fans of the books and the universe. You have to want to watch it, which I think is where it falls down a lot, because I think we saw it in the cinema, I think. But it was, I knew what I was getting into, and I was here for it. I enjoyed the lore of the world. I enjoyed the characters. I think if I didn't have that enjoyment, I would not be able to sit through it. I haven't seen the second one yet, but I'm going to watch it. But
everyone, like everything that I've seen on Twitter, people like my friends who have saw that, they've walked away being like, oh, it's a cinematic masterpiece and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know, I've not been pulled in yet. Maybe I'll watch it all the way through and I'll be genuinely impressed, but I've not had that urge.
Listeners are saying in the chat, it might be better as a mini-series on TV, and I agree with that.
Yeah,
I think you need to be able to break it up, because it's a lot for people to digest in 2.5 hours. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
And it's very kind of it requires a lot of commitment to it, which I don't think it makes it accessible to a general audience, which is unfortunate because it is a good story. But it's cinematically it's beautiful. Character wise, it's really well done.
I mean, all the cast are like stunning. Like, I mean, that was half the press tour was just look how stunning our cast is. Which fair enough.
Being tortured, and I was like, yes, he does. It is good, but I think it's not got a broader appeal, and I think it suffers for that. And you do, as Rocket Plane's pointing out, the lore of Dune is huge. You have
it's massive. There's like eight books.
The film, I did the audiobooks, and the audiobooks were like a 60-hour commitment for me. It was insane. I was like, oh yeah, I can see why people are going into this film and coming out going, I have no idea what happened.
Yeah. I mean, like, again, aesthetically, it looks and sounds great. Like, you hear, like one of the concepts of like the Butlerian jihad and stuff like that. And there's all the kind of, Arabic / kind of Islamic like slant to the people who live on Arrakis, and that like it generally sounds like something that I would be interested in. It's just whenever I went to watch the film, I went, I don't have the time commitment for this. It's a long movie, and I found that, and I know this is blasphemy on your side, Joy, but even when I watched Robert Pattinson's Batman, that was a long fucking film to be in the cinema for, and I remember going, I really could have been,
I need to point out my sound gave it. I couldn't hear anything, and all I heard was, Joy, this is going to be blasphemy for you, but the Batman film was too long. So I couldn't hear anything for the last 30 seconds, and then you're immediately bad-mouthing my boy.
I wasn't bad-mouthing the boy, I was just saying it was a long film. It was a very long film.
It's a long film. It is, but it's one of the better ones, but it's long.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad I watched it at home because I could pause it and go to the bathroom. Like, it could have very easily been. I think he'd be good as a Batman TV series leader. I think he'd be good at that.
Yeah.
But it's very long. It's a very, very long film. It is good, though.
People are mentioning Lord of the Rings in chat, and extended editions all the way. I will watch every single one of those films. And I will not complain about the length once. It just, I don't know, it's maybe a combination of like superhero fatigue, as I mentioned, or just cinemas in general. I mean, I used to quite enjoy going to the cinema, but sometimes it's nice to be able to, pause a film and go and have a piss and, make a cup of tea and then sit back down, That was my issue with The Hobbit. So I don't know if I'm just getting older. My bladder doesn't hold itself as well. But in The Hobbit, I held it for as long as I could. I had to leave in the middle of the action scene with the dragon because I was like, nope, this has been like 4 hours of my life. I need to leave. And it completely ruined it for me. But it's really, The thing with the Hobbit films is that there's absolutely no reason for there to be 3 of them. And they just wanted to make a trilogy that mirrored the Lord of the Rings. And there's like a weird bit with Legolas for no reason. Like, Legolas isn't in The Hobbit. And the journey from the kind of elven town to the riverside or lakeside or whatever it is. It's fairly standard. But no, in the Hobbit film, everything was just dragged out. Apparently, there's extended editions, Lake Town. That's what I meant. But like, apparently, the extended editions add even more stuff to that's not required. But I did hear that someone like stitched all of the films together and cut all of the unnecessary stuff, and they actually made it like one cohesive edit of the film, which is quite good. And you could watch the whole of The Hobbit in the space of like an hour and a bit.
Yeah, because Lord of the Rings was so long and people loved it, I feel like The Hobbit was made long for the sake of making it long because that's what you expected from Peter Jackson.
It was also done entirely with green screen. There was tons of it that was CGI, whereas like every orc that you fucking see in Lord of the Rings is someone with heavy prosthetics on, and they look amazing for it. And then you see the big evil orc or whatever in The Hobbit, and it's like, you just look shit. You look shiny.
Again, going back to Wonka, the practical effects in Wonka are great.
Yeah,
there is CGI, but it's not that glaringly obvious, and they rely more on prosthetics and practical effects. And I think that adds to the appeal of that. Whereas when I watched the Johnny Depp Wonka, I was like, oh, that CGI has aged terribly already.
Oh, fuck. It's the bit at the start with the chocolate bars. Yeah. That is like, brutal.
And Johnny Depp's hands are obviously fake.
Yes.
He's putting the tickets in the thing. It's obviously fake. And I'm like, why did that need to be CGI?
Yeah.
Why?
Did you see, like, this is a complete side thing, but apparently for the new Dragon's Dogma game that's coming out, apparently when you cook in the game, it will actually show you a video of something being cooked as opposed to using visual effects for it. I haven't read, maybe I've misunderstood it, but apparently they genuinely just show the meat being cooked on, like, it's not like it loads up a video player, but they've put that in place of graphically it being done, which seems wild.
So the old Might and Magic games, showing my age here, the really old Might and Magic games used to do something similar, and even the old Star Wars, the Kyle Katarn games, they did have like graphic stuff. They cut to like the cutscenes were done by actors.
Yes.
So, and I loved those. Those were so good. But I remember the Might and Magic ones. When you entered a store, it cut from being the graphics to an actor being like, "Hello there, traveler. What are you looking for?" And then that's a good choice. And they talk you through the menu and stuff. And I thought that was always great when I was a kid. I loved that. And then with the Kyle Katarn ones, the acting in that was so good. Like those were like their own Star Wars.
Yeah, they went out. They went all out. Yeah. It was great. It's funny. They're
going back to that.
Well, yeah, I mean, Blue Lights mentioned we did a stream of Inculinati, the kind of medieval parchment one. Yeah, and like after you completed the tutorial of that, it cut to like a movie of like a knight and a nun. it was quite wild. I do like that. Like I do like how they can balance those two mediums like that. It's definitely interesting. I don't think it would work for all games, but I think there's definitely stuff that it would work for.
I think with the cooking one, that's interesting. I think that's like a really interesting way of merging the two media for that. Yeah, I hadn't heard that. That sounds interesting though.
Yeah, I mean the character creator for it, as Hex mentioned above in chat, is that like they've released, so Dragon's Dogma 2 have released the character creator for free on Steam. You can go and make your character, and you can make up to 5 characters for yourself to play, and you can make several characters to be your companion, like your main companion in the game as well. And people are making like wild stuff with it. I've seen Keanu Reeves, I've seen Timothee Chalamet, I've seen someone made Pikachu, which I thought was really, really creepy because they're doing some really funky stuff with like skin colour and everything. I saw someone do Spider-Man from Spider-Man 3, where he's like Tobey Maguire from Spider-Man 3 when he's Venom, and he's got like the hair covering his eye. He's doing the emo haircut. It is quite impressive what character creators can do. And to be honest, it's actually a great idea. Blue Lights has just dropped it in chat for anyone who's interested, but you can download the character creator and just make your own character. And I almost wish I could like pay someone to make just me in the game. I think that would be really cool. And go like actually just make a character that's just like me, and because some of the stuff that they're doing with it is so specific. The moment you can like, fucking like, how there's some character creators which are just like, okay, pick your character, and then there's other ones that's like change the angle of your eyelid, and you're kind of going, Fucking hell, okay. That's next level. I know that quite a lot of Japanese games really go to town on character creation, though. You can do a lot with them. Sorry, that's a tangent and a half from fucking Willy Wonka.
Tangent and a half. It's fine.
Yeah.
It ties in though, because we're talking about Uncanny Valley and CGI and effects and everything, and it's I do like seeing the return to some practical effects. I do like seeing.
Oh, we need more of it.
Media used
it's something that can't be done with generative AI though.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of executives will take the easy route.
Yeah.
One thing that I thought that was quite interesting, I saw it was like a quote from someone, and they were saying, we're not at the point that generative AI can replace people, but we're at the point that executives think it can. Yes. And all of our entertainment is going to suffer on the back of it. I think if Madam Web's anything to go by where that's headed, we are in for a shit show. It's going to be so bad.
I also think that's just a Sony issue, because Sony has...
They fucked Morbius as well, didn't they?
They fucked Morbius. They really, really did. But
I've not seen Morbius. Did you see Morbius?
Yes, but I don't remember anything about it.
I was going to say...
There's no point remembering this.
I was going to say, at least we had a fairly decent film and a bad film. If I'd said we should do back-to-back Morbius and Madam Web, I think both of us would be sitting here crying.
It would just be skeletons in the chair.
It's like...
our friendship would be over. It's just... It's
self-inflicted.
Yeah. I know. It's not good, but it's... The only thing I know about Morbius are the memes. Yeah, the memes are for the good thing, and Jared Leto, fuck Jared Leto, fucking with a steel pole. But it's very... I think I watched it on principle because I was bored, and I was just like, yeah, we'll see what people are talking about. And I don't remember, I did not retain any information about it. It is gone out of my skull. I just remember sitting at this desk for a couple of hours and then being like, that was a weird fever dream, and then retaining none of it.
So, I almost don't want to ask this question, but Morbius is a vampire, right? That's his thing?
Yep.
Okay, this is fine. That's all I needed to know. It's fine. Not a good vampire.
If you can make me unhappy about vampires... Oh, have you heard that Twilight's getting an animated series?
Oh, fuck. No, I'm going to say it right now. I am not watching that.
You're watching.
No, I'm not. Fucking hell. No, I'm not watching that. It's not happening. I was watching... the only Twilight thing I've watched recently is ContraPoints' video on it. And to be honest, I got like an hour into that, and then I went, nah. It's like... I get it.
This is the monkey paw of Tumblr, because everyone's like, who wants more live action stuff? We should get more animated things. And the people that own Twilight went, bet.
I hope
so bad.
I hope the characters are actually just animated versions of all the original cast. That would be fucking hilarious. Like dragging Robert Pattinson back into the abyss.
He never gets to rest, that poor man. Every interview he does, they always mention Twilight, and you can just see he's dead. And
the light go from his eyes.
The light goes out.
Oh man, I feel for him. But yeah, that is definitely a
animated Renesmee.
And is it an animated film or an animated TV series?
I think it's TV. I think it's going to be like drawn out like a execution. It's really... But I saw that and I was just like, "Yep, we're going back. We're going back to hell. It's 2012 all over again. We're going back to when I was editing crucifix nail nipples." Like I don't think I'm strong enough. If I'm still editing stuff whilst we're having a Twilight resurgence, I can't do it, gang.
Like,
I can't.
Time is a flat circle at this point, right? It was like 10 years ago we were kind of coming out I mean, when did the final Twilight movie release? 2013.
It's the same year.
12.
It's the same year that Crucifix Nail Nipples happened to me, and I can't escape it. So hell. It's because I remember that it was the last film was coming up, and I got this vampire manuscript on my desk that I went, oh, it's another vampire story. How bad can it be? And my life has never been the same since.
Oh my god. The only funny thing I've seen about Twilight, actually, apart from just how bad and stunted the entire film was, but I did see a video of someone who'd watched it on like an uneven, like projecting it onto like uneven fabric, and you've got like Robert Pattinson with no nose and stuff, and I think that would actually be a really fun way to watch a whole bunch of bad films. Me and Jessica have been debating whether to watch the whole of the Twilight saga, and I can't bring myself to it. My sister watched it a lot when I was younger, and she was growing up, and I can't get into it. I can't get into it again. I can't open that Pandora's box again. I've sealed it shut and concreted it.
Not good. It's not the Mormonism and the racism and the cultural appropriation. It's really not something that I tell people, oh yeah, it's a classic, you have to watch it.
Yeah.
I am embedded in it because I cannot escape. This is why.
All you can do is hold up a warning banner for other people.
Yeah. But I will watch the animated one because I want to see how I'll watch a couple of episodes back because I want to see what they do with it. But when I saw that was announced, I was just like, asking for more animated stuff. That's what we get. We're getting Twilight.
Yeah, and I will wish you well as you watch it, and I never want to read about it. Please don't make me watch.
I'll watch Madam Web for you.
So yeah, I'm afraid both of the suggestions tonight were mine. And I was like, oh, Joy, you've got to watch Wonka, you've got to watch Madam Web. I do owe you one, but I hope you redeem that voucher before this animated show's made.
I'll need to think of something.
Right, I think I'm probably going to have to wrap up there. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm absolutely fucking knackered. I've had a day of, it's Mother's Day here, so I've been out and about, and I need my bed because I'm working early tomorrow. But yes, I think we'll leave you. Madam, we're talking about, you know what? I've already forgotten about Madam Web as a film. We don't need to think about it ever again.
Dumped the cash from our brain. We don't need to think about it anymore.
and exposed all of you to it. Yeah, it's like we decided to infect you with that knowledge. But yeah, I think we'll be about for an AyeSphere in a couple of weeks' time. We are taking it a little bit easier this year, as you may have already gathered for those of you who are listening on Spotify and here just now. We've kind of been taking it nice and easy. We are trying to do around one a month, which hopefully will have 12 solid episodes, and also allows us time to prepare and talk about topics. But we'll try and keep them coming.
We are letting our brains rest, and I'm also I'm in the middle of rewrites for book 2 for Hunger Pangs, so I have no brain bandwidth. So the fact that I used up my brain bandwidth on Madam Web last night, I am doing no work tomorrow. I am sleeping.
So when all of the delays to your second book coming out can be blamed entirely on me wasting your brain power. That works. Righty, okay. Well, in that case, for those of you who are listening on Spotify, thanks very much. For those of you who are here on Twitch with us, hang around for a little bit. We'll probably chat for 5-10 minutes afterwards. But yeah, we will see you next time. And don't go and watch Madam Web, it's terrible.
Watch Wonka instead.
Yeah, watch Wonka instead. Okay, see you in a bit, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.